Hiya, so I really think that we need to start talking about periods in fiction, but particularly young adult fiction, because it's so relevant and new to teenagers, especially when they're just starting to get their period and like it's leaking everywhere, and oh my god, the memories of being a teenager with periods. I found a video of someone talking about menstruation in their videos, so it was titled Periods in Fiction. And then I clicked into it and then they started talking about the 18th century and I was like, oh my god, wrong period. I think that we need to start normalising discussions about periods. When I was a teenager, my period was like super heavy and I didn't realise that that wasn't normal. It was like really hard to manage. It was completely unmanageable sometimes. As I got a bit older, I started to develop really bad PMS symptoms. I had so many bad experiences with it, and also I used to eat so much. At the time, I'd be eating around 1,500 calories a day, and then once my period came along, it was like 3,000 calories a day, and I still wouldn't feel full. I was constantly hungry. So then I went on the pill. I didn't realise, all as a teenager, that the pill could really be used as a way of managing your period, and that was some of the side effects of it. It wasn't just for contraception. So I think that's really important, first of all, for that message to get out there to teenagers, because some teenagers do go on the pill for managing their period. A lot of people are just like, oh, they must be on it because they're having sex. And it's like, well, no, there's lots of reasons, and there's reasons for why you should consider going on the pill if you're having a really hard time dealing with your period every month, and if you really, really hate it, if you're having severe cramps and it's really disrupting your life, then you shouldn't have to deal with that. I remember as a teenager being like, oh my god, I have to do this for the next like 30-40 years, deal with this every single month, and I absolutely hated it. I didn't know how women actually managed to get anything done for like a quarter of the month. I was like, how do women go to work every month and deal with this? Whereas it doesn't have to be really hard to manage, and we need to talk about that with teenagers and be like, look, if this is what you're dealing with, then that's okay. You can talk to someone about it and you can try and figure out a solution. I've had people be like, Jessica, what are you doing talking about your period? There are men here. I'm like, sorry, but they're grown-ups. They can deal with the fact that I'm going to talk about something that happens to the majority of healthy women. And then you have men who are like, oh, don't talk about your period. I don't want to hear about that stuff. I don't talk about peeing and pooing with you. And it's like, yeah, but like realistically, I've heard lots of people be like, oh, I'll be back in a second, I'm just going to pee, or something along those lines, when instead of saying like, oh, I'm going to the toilet. Maybe I just hang around with the wrong people and they're just really comfortable with telling me, oh, I need to go pee. That is the same kind of vein of saying, I have my period. Like, I'm not giving you any really heavy details. Okay, heavy was the wrong word there. I'm not giving you like really grotesque details of how thick my uterus lining was this month and how dark it was and all that kind of nonsense. All I'm saying is, oh, I have my period, I have cramps, oh, it's bad, I'm sad. You know, it's not really disgusting thing to talk about. So I think that we definitely need to talk about it, just for the fact that we have men who think that it's okay to be like, ew, periods, disgusting, and get all freaked out. And it's like, sorry, but you're grown up, deal with it, like. So let's teach boys through things like young adult fiction and television and film and all different forms of media, so that they don't grow up into these men and they don't grow up being like, ew, periods, I don't want to hear about that, and becoming all disgusted and awkward because you're talking about like blood. Also, I think that we need to start talking about periods in a bit of a more positive light. Like, I know that I just said all these negative experiences that I had with my period as a teenager, but we need to stop having this lazy comedy where it's like a woman gets emotional and then someone goes, oh my god, are you on your period? And then she goes, yeah, and then that's the joke. Like, women can be completely rational and control themselves and not be super hormonal and emotional just because they're on their periods, and that's really lazy comedy writing if you're relying on that joke that's been done 1,000 times before and just isn't funny anymore. Hormones do affect us, but we are still able to make judgments clearly, and it's not going to affect us in any real way if we have got it under control. Like, I went on the pill because I was having major mood swings and I was having severe depression. It was awful. So I went and I got some help with it, And now I'm fine. Now I'm completely rational on my period. I don't get really upset over minor things. And I know that people are going to be like, oh well, that means that women do get super emotional and irrational on their periods because you have to take something to be able to get to that stage. But sorry, would you be judging someone if they took paracetamol for their headache or Buscopan because they had a sore tummy or whatever? No, so why are you judging people for taking the pill just so that they can get their hormones a bit more under control during their period? It's the exact same thing. I would really like to read some stories about teenagers dealing with their periods because it's just not mentioned at all. Like, can you imagine how much more interesting the Hunger Games would be if Katniss had to deal with her period while there was like some shark going after her or something? I know there were no sharks in the Hunger Games, but like that'd be really interesting if she was in shark infested waters and then suddenly, oh my god, I've got my period, and now she's like spreading the smell of blood through the water. That would have been so interesting. But no, we didn't get to experience the joy that could have been the Hunger Games with Katniss getting her period, because apparently that's not a worthwhile experience of being a woman for most people that is worthy of being included in a novel. And it's like that in the majority of books. I think Louise O'Neill mentioned it in Only Ever Yours when the girls are talking about getting their periods. That's the only book that I can think of where people talk about period stuff. Of course, I'm over here in another video giving praise to Louise O'Neill, but she's incredible. I want to grow up to be her, even though I'm already a grown-up. If you're a man and you think that we shouldn't have periods in books because ew, that means that book is for girls or whatever, please let me know in the comment section down below why you would be against having periods in books. And if you're not against having periods in books, also let me know, because I would love to hear someone is on my side for once and is like, yes, that's a great idea. I know that lots of people are and they just don't talk about it much, but I was just like, this is something that I need to talk about at this stage because it's getting really annoying. If you're not already subscribed to me, then you should do that, because I'm wonderful with the way that I talk about feminism and mental health and young adult fiction. I'm really fantastic, so you're highly missing out if you don't subscribe to me. Thanks very much for watching though. Slán!